Welcome to the Creative Warriors Podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. Welcome back. We have Kaisa with us, and it is exciting to talk to her again. We are digging into choices we make to make more expressive work, and some of the challenges that we occur as we strive to do that. So one of the things we're going to talk about today is some of the tools that we use to create expressive artistry and some of her preferences. So first question for you today. Welcome back, by the way. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Can you think of an image that when you saw it on screen, you deeply were either surprised or moved by it, or you emotionally reacted to it? And can you share with us that experience?
You mean on the computer?
Yeah, when you look at the back of your camera, it's sometimes you have a different reaction than when you actually pull it in and you see it big.
Yeah. I can think of quite a few images. I can think of hundreds and maybe thousands of images that created the negative reaction. It wasn't what it was looking like in the view or the
You're not alone.
the camera. But I can think of quite a few images that have had the positive reaction that this wow effect. And I think the common factor in them is that I have taken an image of something and the intentional camera movement has turned it into something else. So this sort of metamorphosis has happened. So I was just the other day out taking pictures up on a hill, taking pictures of treetops. And the trees are all covered with snow. So they're quite difficult actually to photograph, very little contrast. And then they were okay when I was looking from the back of my camera. But when I put them out on the screen later on, they had all turned into dancers. So they all had taken a human shape. And they all looked like these, I don't know what century, not our century, but like 16th century women with big clothing and,
poofy dresses,
big dresses and wigs and all of these. So that was like, what happened? And I think these days, majority of the images that I get this wow effect with is that I see something else there, which wasn't in the original subject.
And you didn't see it when you were shooting it?
No, not at all. I know that many times those trees, even when you look at them with your naked eye, they might have an animal shape or a human shape because they are all fluffy and puffy and so on. They are quite, they are tall and skinny, but I didn't think of that at all. So I only saw that once I put them on my computer and I started to look at them big. And I only saw that in that case.
Neat. And that's something that really appeals to you, that metamorphosis. Did you mention before that you had a project that included that? Or you were working on a series?
I was working on a series I called it Wood Wide Web, where I photographed trees again, surprisingly enough. It was based on a book called Secret Life of Trees by Peter Wolleben. And Peter Wolleben talks in his book how trees have ability to communicate with one another and how they form communities and they actually warn one another and they nurture their elderly and they nurture their offspring, etc. And my series was about that. I wanted to make those visible by using ICM technique. So it wasn't directly to do with metamorphosis as such, but I wanted to visualize things that are unseen in that series. And that visualizing the unseen for me is really it's my guideline today in my ICM work.
I think you have a couple, I think they're books. I should know this because I just looked at it. but you have some work that you've published that is exquisite, was on your website. Tell us a little bit about that. I believe you have a couple.
I published a book in November, last November in 2023, and it's called Dancing My Nature. In a way, it has to do with this visualizing the unseen again. The idea there is that I have taken the dancers out into the nature in the 8 different seasons that we have here in Lapland. And I wanted to photograph the fact that we have 8 very different seasons as opposed to only 4, and bring out the characteristics that the 8 seasons have, and have the dancers sort of enhance the different atmosphere and the different colors and lights and contrast that those seasons have. And the photography part itself took about 1.5 years. Some of them I photographed only once, and some seasons I had several photo shoots. And then putting the book together took about almost 1 year. And then it came out in November.
And it's beautiful, exquisite work.
Thank you.
You took me down a educational trail of learning about the fact that there are lots of places that have more than 4 seasons. They might have 6, or in your case, 8. So that was very interesting to me, because again, we continue to learn as we learn, we don't know, and then we learn more, which is awesome.
Yeah. It's wonderful. And of course, I worry about it because of the global warming, that we lose the 8 seasons, or some seasons become similar. They kind of melt into one another, or we might lose a season altogether. So that was part of the reason why I wanted to do this book.
To document it.
To document it in a way, and to put my feelings into it, and, have it as a memory, kind of.
Well, it's beautiful work.
To say about the 8 seasons is that originally it's based on the Sami people, who are our indigenous people who live here in Scandinavia. And they have been reindeer herders always. And the reindeers follow these 8 seasons. They migrate. They go from one place to another, depending where there is food and shelter, etc. So the whole 8 seasons of Lapland is coming from there. But then I have used it in a bit in a different context, sort of underlining what the seasons actually are like, what they look like.
Awesome. So you had talked before about how when you're trying to make more expressive and more meaningful work, you used light and color, and how the seasons have really helped you achieve that. What are some of the things that you look for in the quality or in the type of light and color? What are the things that for you make an image feel more harmonious and etc.?
I always go
ahead. Sorry.
I always go color first. That's the first thing I look for. I guess a lot of photographers look for the light, and they may only go out when the light is stunning. But with the intentional camera movement, you can do also, if the light is flat, you can still get stunning images. But I always look for color first, and I always look for complementary colors. I guess my style of photography is abstract expressionism, maybe more than this traditional impressionistic Monet type.
Right.
So I have more color and speed in the picture, tension and energy. But when you do have complementary colors in your image, that brings expression, and that brings energy, and that brings tension into it. So whenever that can be found, I'm always very pleased. And that's something I always look for first. Then light comes second.
Okay.
Or maybe not even second. I think maybe the elements that I'm looking at in my subject, the geometrical lines and shapes that exist, they come second.
Okay.
Because That's how I start to move my camera, along those geometrics that I see.
Mm-hmm.
And then the light is.
You just work with whatever quality of light is presented to you.
Yeah. But of course, I never stop going out if the light isn't perfect. It doesn't stop me. If the light is flat or cloudy or whatever, I still go out and I take pictures. And it's fine. But of course, on a days when you have the stunning light, like we had yesterday, it was so stunning. Of course, then I take that also into strong consideration and see what kind of contrast the light brings and what kind of colors the light brings and how does it bring my shapes up and emphasize them, etc. So it's not that I neglect light altogether, but it's not the first thing I go after.
That's a unique perspective. You talked about lines and shapes. So with ICM and moving with the objects. So when you're looking at a scene and you see lines and shapes, what are some of those components that you're looking for? Is it contrast? Is it triangles? Is it, what attracts you? What's that hook that you're looking for in that image with using some of those elements, composition, lines and shapes?
Contrast is important because if you don't have contrast, then your end result is just mashed potato. Doesn't look like anything. But if you
That's
have
a good description. That's a little mashed potato-y to me.
If you have color contrast, like if you have the complementary colors, then you immediately have elements there to work with. And if you have light contrast, very strong darks and strong lights, then you have also an element to work with. So contrast is very important. But then the elements themselves, I like to see whatever the shape is. I like to see strong shapes, like if trees against a river or a lakeside, for example. You have the dark trees and then you have the light in the back from the water. So you have very strong elements there. That gives you a lot of possibilities. Or if you look at architecture, you have squares and rectangles and angles and whatever. You have things to play around with and move your camera. And then depending how you move it, you either make things disappear or you emphasize things that are there in your image, in your subject. So if you have trees and you make a vertical movement along with the tree trunks, you emphasize the trees. But if you make a horizontal move across the trees, they disappear. And the horizon line, the possible horizon line you have in the background, that is being underlined. And so that's the way you can play around.
And the speed of your movement and the shutter, right? That's another element that you're using in your kit, so to speak.
Yeah. And especially if I want to do this visualizing the unseen, I have learned now, I'm still learning, but I have learned already now that I like to use longer shutter speeds, like 4 seconds, 6, 8, 10, something along those lines, because then I have more time I have better control to do my movements. And often when you want to visualize the unseen, you might want to combine several movements in the image itself. You make kind of layers. The layers either cover something or they reveal something, and that may turn into a third thing which wasn't in the original subject. But in order to have controlled multiple movements in a single in-camera image, you need a long time.
Yeah.
If you have a half a second, you don't have time. You have no control really to think that I need to do 3 movements here.
Right.
But if you have 8 seconds, you can do 3 seconds, 1 movement, 3 seconds, another one, and 2 more seconds, a third one. And all of them can be very controlled. And also the longer time you have, the slower you move. So you have even more control there. Whereas just quickly moving, then you don't have so much control how the camera actually moves.
So, and you end up with whatever you end up with.
Yeah, very often.
Which sometimes can be beautiful, or it can look like a watercolor paint that I might have done with too much. Well, I worked it too hard.
You overworked it. Kind of.
Yeah. So how do you feel that your learning to be more expressive in your work and the ICM work has helped you in your life?
It definitely has made me accept myself as I am. It has taught me that I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I don't always succeed in my goals. It's made me more humble, I think. I'm fairly impatient. I'm very impatient. But now I'm maybe fairly impatient. The exposure times, it teaches you to be more patient.
That's true.
At some point, I tried to do some landscape photography with very dark neutral density filters, traditional.
Right.
Where you have the thing on the tripod and then it's 20-minute exposure time and then you get the softness of the water in your landscape. I never have patience for that. First, you have to wait 20 minutes. Then you have to wait another something minutes so that it's being processed in your camera. And then finally, when you see the image, it's too dark. You have to do it all over again. So you get like images in an hour. So
it's not your thing.
It's not my thing. I'm far too impatient for that. But ICM has taught me patience in that way.
Beautiful. So we're going to finish with this question and we're going to come back again. But do you have a pattern or something that you could share with us on ideas of ways that we can continue to grow as artists?
Creativity. You have to keep your creativity flowing. You have to do a little bit of something creative on a daily basis. And that kind of keeps you wanting to do the art. I feel that's very important. I feel it's important to do something every day. But I feel it's important to have a goal, to have a challenge, to have a project, to have a topic, because that pushes you forward. It keeps you going. It makes you go out. It makes you take your camera and work. If you don't work, if you sit at home and wait for inspiration, like 3 weeks, it may not come and you have lost 3 weeks. But if you have a target, if you have a project, like I had with my Secret Life of Trees, and a deadline, that helps a lot. So it makes me go out and it makes me create. And that the more I work, the better I get, the more it helps my artistry, the more it helps me understand what I know, what I can do, what I don't know yet, what I still have to learn, what I'm able to achieve, what I still have to develop in. Doing a little bit of something creative every day. It doesn't have to be photography. It can be painting. I do a little bit of painting every day still. And it can be cooking, singing, dancing, whatever that you can express yourself.
Do you ever use writing as a tool in the creative world, or are you more visual than words?
I'm definitely more visual than words, but I do use writing when I start a project, a new one. Then that's the first thing I do is I write down everything that comes to my mind on that subject matter. So if it was trees, I would sit down and write about trees, whatever I think and know and would like to know, and whatever I'd like to learn about trees, etc. Whatever I associate trees with, I write all of that down. That helps me kind of define what kind of project this will be and what do I want to express. But then once I get going, I don't write anymore.
Okay.
I have tried having my notebook with me when I go out and take some, sit down, do some writing there out in the nature. But I'm still too impatient for that.
Yeah, I share your pain in that one because I have one and I always bring it, but I don't bring it out. Now, my camera does let me record a little bit, so I might use that on occasion where I'll just kind of say it. But
yeah.
even I forget that it's sitting right there. All I have to do is push a button, but
yeah, that's a good idea. I never thought of that, actually. Thanks for the tip, because I have that function as well. So, yeah.
Because sometimes you see something and you photograph it and it's like a phrase or a name almost comes as you're doing it. But then when you get back, you're like, so that's what I try to record, just some little snippet, but I don't always remember it's there.
I use it a lot in my photojournalism work when I have to record people's names. And that helps so much.
Oh, I bet it would.
Record the name right onto the file.
Awesome.
Yeah, especially in the winter or in rain when you can't write when everything is wet.
Right. Awesome. All right, well, we're going to come back again and we're going to talk a little bit more about visual elements of expression and exploration and how it affects our work and stories using contrast, energy, and other elements. So we will be back. Thank you again.
Sounds exciting. Thank you.
So before we go, share a little bit more about how people can contact you and learn about what you're doing for the photography community.
Well, if you would like to join my world of ICM photography, I have several offerings. Together, in collaboration with Stephanie Johnson and Morag Patterson, we have the ICM Network community, which is a membership community, lifelong learning platform. We have the New Beginnings workshop, which next starts in the summer. And then for self-study on-demand courses, we also offer the ICM Photo Academy. And all of these you can reach via my website at artistkaisasirén.com.
Thank you. Remember to subscribe or follow the Creative Warriors on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at ariel@arielfaithphotography.com. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep the conversation going. Stay curious and have a happy artistic journey. Thank you for listening to the Creative Warriors podcast, the female heart and soul of photography. See you next episode.